Hello. This is a project I saw mentioned on one of the electronics bulletin boards I look at occasionally, and it seemed a novel thing to do, especially as it's coming up to Halloween. The original is an Adafruit or Adafruit design using their Arduino compatible MCUs. There's also another version by Sudomod, which is the same hardware requirement, but he's done an ingenious version of the software that displays completely different eyes on the two screens, which allows you to use 4 screens or 2 pairs, and using one of the configurations options for symmetrical eyelids rather than the left and right shaped eyelids. You just connect 2 screens in parallel for each pair, so you've got 2 pairs that in each pair the eyes display identical images, but the other pair displays another separate random set. Now, I must stress that neither the software nor the concept or anything about the overall design and principles are my ideas. My contribution is just another build video and using a different Arduino compatible MCU, which I've not seen mentioned anywhere else, and which at the moment seems easier to get hold of and a bit cheaper. There's also a slight mod on the other construction which makes things a bit easier and a bit more versatile. Some of the options you can have with this are completely different eyes, anything from the human style that I've got set on that at the minute through various ones with slitted pupils, cat's eyes, dragon eyes, all sorts of things. And again, it's configuration option. Just as you set up the program, you decide which appearance you want. You decide if you want the eyelids to track the eyes like these are doing, or the eyelids to stay fully open except when they're blinking. And you can mount them in either individual cases. That's what Sudomod's done. He's made a little 3D printed box for each eye, so you can daisy chain them together more or less. Or the original Adafruit one shows them in a skull, which is one of the other options, which was something I was looking at, which I found a suitable plastic skull in a shop at the minute because it's coming to Halloween again. One point on these, the bare displays have a little line of light at the edge. I've just added a bit of tape wrapped over the very edge of the display, because if you're putting them behind something with a cutout like that, it gets rid of the light at the edges, so you only see the eye. Without the tape, when I can get it in without snagging, you can see a little line at the edge, which detracts from the effect on the eye. And that's just a characteristic of the displays. You may also be able to just cover it with black marker or a little bit of matte black paint very carefully down the edges, because the tape works but it keeps going unstuck. Might not be so bad if that was actually clamped to the back of something. Another thing I looked at is for mounting is something like that, which was quite an interesting effect. But construction. The displays are 1.44 128 by 128 pixel, which are readily available on eBay. They're one that's the same pattern as one of the old Nokia phones. And the microcontroller is a Seeed Xiao, and I'm not sure how you pronounce that, XIAO, which has exactly the same SAM chip as the Adafruit M0 type MCUs. But these have less I/O. There are a few less pins, a little bit smaller, but exactly the same CPU on the board. Pull that in so you can see it. That's what's running that, with plenty of memory and enough I/O for a project like this. So just open these and look at building it. The displays come, oh, it's actually got a slit in there to open it. The displays come with pin headers on, which, if you're wanting to put them in small cases or whatever, may not be convenient. They can be quite easily removed. Let me just zoom out on the camera so you can see my full working area. Otherwise I'm likely to move out of shot. And I'll put a bit of light on as well. Hopefully it won't detract too much or reflect too badly, but it makes it a bit easy to work. Yeah, you can remove the pin head if you want, or you could use a socket and solder the socket pins instead of soldering direct to the display, if you don't mind having the bulk of a connector behind it. Let me just get that one out of the way. That is the schematic to use this particular MCU, Seeed device. Just make that clearly in shot. I will add a link to a PDF for this, or an image, and I will also have links below for the various other sites, the originals, the Adafruit, Sudomod, and the Seeed wiki page that has the required software library add-on for the Arduino Studio to allow it to work with the Seeed MCU. Once you have that, the programs for the other types of device just work just the same. So 2 displays, 1 MCU, and because it's all going to work on 5 volt, and the display backlight has a resistor on the board set for 3.3 volts, or to set the current for the LEDs appropriate for 3.3 volts, should I say. Now, some of the online stuff says remove that and replace it with a new resistor. You don't actually need to do that, because if the LED pin is just being linked straight to the VCC pin, rather than wire link and replace that resistor, use the external resistor as the wire link. The board's then unchanged. You can use it back on 3.3 volts if you want to in the future. There's less chance of doing any damage, and you don't need to mess about trying to remove a surface mount resistor. Now, I'm going to protect the pins off of this. It's just a bit more compact. Now, you can just keep breaking up the insulator, but it's not difficult to pull the whole thing off the pins. Just pry it gently and it will lift and leave all the pins in place, and then you can pull the pins individually. on that one. Oh, that's the ground, it's got a bit more copper around it. Better from this side. Yeah, there we go. Oh, so that's actually a bit easier anyway than trying to get to the top side. Same again, just pull that and then pull the pins. From this side, this time I think it does work better. My end's getting a bit messy, it needs tinning. You also need a bit of thin, flexible wire. I think it's 8 pieces, no, 7 pieces per display. 6 of those go to the same pins on each display, and then one, what's that ground pin again? It's a bit awkward. And there's one which selects which of the 2 displays is being addressed by the MCU, so that's got a separate connection to each display from pins on the MCU. That's it there. Now, free of wires. Now, one of the online designs, as I said, suggested replacing that 10 ohm resistor there with a 68 ohm resistor, so that lead pin becomes directly a 5 volt supply. I don't need to do that. It seems a little bit messy to me. So instead of that, I've got a 56 ohm resistor as a convenient value. You could still use 68. That other one I just showed was done using 68 ohms. And just bend that to the same spacing as the LED to 5 volt or VCC connections. And fit that 56 ohm as the power feed. Has exactly the same electrical effect as increasing the value of the onboard resistor. So it's square on top of the LED pad. And the same to the other one. That means the display controller and the LCD backlight will both work from the VCC pin now at 5 volts. Okay, some wire. This is some I've got stripped out of some 8-core burglar alarm wire, security system cable. It's just thin flexible wire. That's quite easy to strip. Now, as I said, most of the connections are common to each display, with just the chip select being on separate pins from the MCU to select which display is being updated. So you can either take 2 wires from each output or each terminal on the MCU and 1 to each display, or if you prefer, you can daisy chain them from the MCU to the first display and then the first display to the second display, and just have 1 extra long wire from the second display back through to its select pin. I'm going to go both from the MCU, I think. So I need 2 sets of wires. It's the same thing, a bit longer. Same stuff. Other than the slightly different hardware assembly and the consequent different pin select or pin allocations in the configuration file for the project, you can follow the Adafruit or the Sudomod build instructions for this to set up the software and all the different options, and you can use either different set of software for the 2 different random eyes or the shaped eyes, as you prefer. You can also daisy chain the 4 displays or double up on each display if you want the 4x4 version, the 2-pair version. The only difference is that and the added resistor rather than modifying the display. I will, if I get a chance, post a video showing building and configuring the software, but that depends how I get on with that, because I've never tried doing a full screen grab of a project like that from the PC. I don't know how well it works, if it works. It's a new experiment. So in the meantime, I'll just post the configuration files as links that you can use my configuration files that work with this board as a basis with everything else from one of the other projects. So I need 5 volts and ground to start with, which the ground is the second pin down on the right. That's looking at it with the display connector, the USB connector at the top. The very top pin is 5 volts. I'll use a bit of red for that. Partly working my own shadow here because of the light angle, but if I put the light higher you get glare in the camera. So I can see but you can't, which makes it a bit pointless doing a video. Just keep using 2 of the same colour wire for all the parallel connections. So that's the 4th one down that side is serial data out. And the 6th one down that side, or next to the bottom, is serial clock for the SPI links to the 2 screens. I hope the camera doesn't run out of memory whilst I'm doing this, because I forgot to clear it first. Yes, it is still recording. So that's all the essential connections on that side. Then on the other side, the top pin is reset. These are all labelled on the schematic. It's actually the A0 pin on the device, but I picked that as the reset output. We've seen fitting that it's a 0 to reset it. The next one down is the address line, which selects which of the registers on the displays data is being sent to the control or data registers. I'll just tin the rest of these off, not it. So it's the A0. Now then, these are the 2 chip select lines. The left one and the right one. Use the short wire for the left one. And the longer wire for the right one. If you note, I'm reflow soldering these wires. I tin the pad, tin the wire, then it only needs heat with a clean iron to reflow the solder and give a nice clean joint between the 2. And that's the essential wiring on that. And connect it at the other ends to the respective displays. Just try and untangle those a bit. The long ones going downwards and the short ones going upwards, I think. Just separate them out. So I have got them arranged slightly differently there. There's 2 sides. Try and stop them twisting together. Right, so the short ones all go upwards. Other than red and black, I haven't picked any particular colours, or just cross-reference with the drawing again for which signals which colour wire. But once we've done one display, the other display will use the identical colours. So the display pad's already tinned from having the pins in. I'll tin all the wires. Then they can just be flowed onto the pads. I always try and twist the ends a bit just to avoid any stray wires or strands of wire sticking out the wrong direction and shorting things. Okay, so working up from the bottom to the top, in fact no, we'll go top to bottom. Clock, which is white on this setup. Data, blue. That was a bit of a long strip, it's melted back a bit. Got carried away. Just tidy it up. Blue, then A0, which is yellow. And reset, which is the orange one. Yeah, that's a bit long. Chip select, which is brown. Don't like all that. It's better, the joint looked a bit matte. Like something wasn't quite right. The last two on that display. Ground next to the bottom. And finally the 5-volt supply. And the same for the display. Just checking the video still running. I've done that before, lost track of how many hours are recorded and forgotten to remove files from the camera, and then found I've been talking to myself for half an hour. Right, so same colours, white, blue, yellow. This wire has insulation that melts rather easily. It tends to run away from the iron a bit when you tin it. So the ends quite often end up being longer than you intend. Orange. Brown. It's the unique one the chip select. And just power. Right, all being well, and me not having done anything stupid, that should work. Let me just clear all the junk off here, all the offcuts. Right, so the wiring in some kind of state where they'll stay visible. It's my USB connection from a computer. So there's no program in the MCU yet, so I have to find that. So I'm just opening the Arduino Studio. I have to edit the config.h to suit the options I want. I already have all the pins defined, and as I said, I will post a copy of this full file. It's only small, it's a text file. Now, on the other version I built, I've also added an LDR photo cell and a resistor to make it light sensitive to change the pupil size, as that's a rather neat part of the program. But as I've not got that on this version yet, I'll just delete that or comment out the line that enables it. And other than that, I'll leave it as it is and just upload it, so you can see the thing work to start with. Oh, I can check it works, should I say. It's just compiling. Again, just checking the camera, making sure everything's clear in the field of view. Oh, let me turn the light out now. Still compiling, uploading. Takes a few seconds. It says it can't find the board. Okay. Port. It's for some reason it's just lost the port that the device is connected to. So I'll have to try uploading again. Should have really checked that first. There we go. So that's running exactly the same code version as the previous one I showed, except it's got the photosol disabled, so the pupil size adjustment is random. One of the options in here, which I can never remember the name of. Oh, tracking, that's it. If tracking is defined, the eyelids move to stay near the pupil. If tracking's turned off, just by putting a couple of slashes in front of it to comment out that line, then the eyelids stay fully open except when it blinks. That may be a better option for some types of outline or mask. That's what I was going to use with that. As the robot mask has eyelids effectively already, keeping the simulated eyelids fully open, I think gives a slightly better appearance rather than seeing black edges. And if I go to where I could find it, Unfortunately, I don't know where I put the alternate version code. That's the version by Sudomod, which has two different or two eyes with completely different random movements. And say with that one, you just directly parallel the display to each left and right, and then use two lefts, if you like, as one pair and two rights as another pair, using the symmetrical eyelids option. This still has a shaped eyelid or shaped eye. If you change one of the other settings, you can make the eyelids symmetrical. But I prefer the shaped ones. It's one of these things you can play about as much as you like. Anyway, I hope that's interesting. As I say, look at the links below the video, in the comments, information for links to the original projects and how to set up the Seeed Studio add-on for the Arduino IDE. That is vital before it will recognise the Arduino MCU. And as I say, depending on the time I'm available, I'll try and do a capture of creating and setting up the program directly from a download, blank slate start if you like. But not having tried that before, I don't know how it'll work or if I'll get it done in time for Halloween this year. Anyway, any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks for watching.